Hi all. My name is Mitja Goroshevsky. I'm CTO of Ton Labs, the core developer of Freeton network, which is currently the fastest and the most scalable blockchain in the world. But the topic of my today's talk is some challenges building decentralized internet. And I named it building decentralized internet and not just a decentralized application or a blockchain decentralized, is because we believe that it's not enough just to build a decentralized financial application or decentralized financial backbone. We believe that we have a problem of centralization of the internet today. And just give a brief example, why do I think it's not such a good idea? Simply because the laws of evolution tells us that we would not be sitting today if the evolution process would be centralized. Meaning people or species, doesn't matter, they tend to make wrong decisions sometimes. And sometimes these wrong decisions are just deadly. So imagine the evolution where all the species would reach one decision. Well, I think this species would live very, very short time, simply because they would make some wrong decision and they would be all dead. So we need to allow this process where a lot of groups, a lot of people, species, that are reaching different decisions in a decentralized way. And now, how do we do that? And of course, Bitcoin was the first to build such a network where it allowed for the first time for people who joined the network to not need to trust each other. And there is no point of trust in a blockchain, in a public blockchain. And that's exactly why I think private blockchains are just meaningless. It's just a wrong branch of an evolution of the technology. Yeah, so if we have a trustless network, so of course, Satoshi wanted this network to be financial backbone to provide for trustless finance. And it developed this way all the way up to today. But in parallel to this, there is an internet, right? There is a larger internet where users are putting their data on, they have applications that they're running, right? And this internet evolution, it made just an opposite direction completely. Just went to the opposite direction, where it started to become monopolized by very few entities. And I'm talking about Google, I'm talking about Facebook and so on. And this monopolization, of course, is wrong in the market. It's like governments around the world are trying to fight monopolization all the time because the market becomes inefficient. While in the internet, it's went this direction, and it's went with this direction because every market, actually, if you don't regulate the market, it will sooner or later become monopolized, simply because that's the motivation of the party. The motivation of economic parties in the market is to grab as much power as possible in a way of revenues, right? That's what the enterprise is optimized for, is making revenue. Same thing when you allow the internet to develop, like the businesses on the internet, these businesses will tend to monopolize, exactly like in any other market. And that's what we are witnessing today. So we have the internet, which is a backbone of all the data and all the human knowledge, which is monopolized by very few parties. And I don't think this is such a good development if you think about the evolution and process we described in the beginning. So for that, we thought, okay, so we have a decentralized technology. We have a technology like the backbone, like the database, and we can run applications on this database now. And it's decentralized, meaning the parties don't need to trust each other. So why wouldn't that be a good idea, maybe, to put these applications that just not just financial applications, but basically any application, or at least some portion of this application which requires that, to put that part in a decentralized way, on a decentralized network. So what would we need to do to even technically to allow this kind of thing, right? So first of all, it must be the demand on this backbone would be huge, right? Because there are millions of people who are using internet today. There are like millions of applications which the internet is used for. So what kind of requirements would we need to talk about here if we want this? I will share my screen now for a second, and let's see. I just put one. It's not even slide to do that. So I put four properties of this backbone. It needs to be fast. It needs to be secure. It needs to be something we called malleable and sustainable, mealable, right? Sustainable. And I will briefly go through all of this. And I believe that all of them are required, right? So first of all, it should be fast. And fast, of course, is a kind of not precise word, but let's just break it up. So it needs to be low latency. And by low latency, I mean, if you go to like social network and you refresh a page or you put a post, you don't expect that, post to appear in an hour or even in 20 seconds. You like hit the button, you wait 1, 2, 3. Well, that's it. I mean, that's more or less the span of user ready to wait for this to appear on the website. So it should be really low latency stuff. Then it should have a very high throughput, because like there are a lot of these users potentially who would want to do that simultaneously. So we talk about, let's say, Twitter, right? So Twitter has like, I don't know, 20, 30,000 transactions per second just on their feed around the world. And on the high peaks, like it can have to like 60, 70,000 TPS, right? And it should be infinitely scalable, because if I want tomorrow to develop new application, I'm an entrepreneur or developer. I wrote some application and there are millions of users suddenly want to use it. Like I wrote a TikTok or whatever, and there are millions of users want to use it. Well, this network should scale with that, right? So it should be like almost infinitely scalable, because we don't know how many of these applications would appear. Now, then it should be really secure, because if we don't do that secure, and I'm not talking about only financial, first, it's a very bad, like if you have a financial application which is not secure. But even if I'm not talking about financial application, just, you putting all your data, and we know that right now you put all your data in the hands of like Google or whatever. And of course, that is exactly the power of their monopolization, because like they have this data, now they can use that data to sell your data basically, and so on and so forth. So user need to be in control of its data if we want really to decentralize the internet. In order to do that, it need to be secure. Like there is no, of course, arguing about that. What we call Mealable is something Nassim Taleb calls anti-fragile. It's basically what happens to if you want this system to, like, say you want to upgrade this system, right? Who is deciding what needs to be upgraded? And should we put your code on it or not, right? If there are rules of the protocol, who decide how these rules changes if we need to change them? And we need to change them to adapt simply for future growth or needs or bugs, change whatever. And if you look even at the Bitcoin, how they do that, the repository where Bitcoin repository code is centralized today. So presumably it's just not decentralized enough. Of course, there are like governance structures, which are like community governance structures that may be decentralized, but until the point where you make all of it decentralized, and also in such a way where this decentralization kind of is upgradable, meaning if tomorrow community changes, the network should not stop and the network development shouldn't stop, right? So you need some kind of rules, governance rules, which would be flexible, which would be anti-fragile. And the last thing, of course, you need it to be sustainable, because if it's not sustainable, nobody will support it, right? So if you have a validators on the network, you have or miners, whatever, right? You need an economic system where doesn't matter what happens, it will always be profitable to run your network. Of course, if the users are there. If the users are not there, then well, nobody needs the network. Right. And the last point is it should be sustainable in a way that where the new entrepreneurs, like developers, want to join the network, do something on that, it should provide some incentive for them to do that. And so I think that more or less this is the framework, at least for me, this is the frame for like to building this decentralized internet. Now, if you look today and just take that framework and apply it to any blockchain that you know today, and you will see very quickly that there are no blockchain today which actually fits all these points, right? So there is simply no protocol today which allows for creation of a decentralized internet yet. And all of the protocols, they have like their good side, like their strong side, something that they do really well. Like, for example, there is a huge community of developers on Ethereum, and they write a lot of Solidity smart contracts. More or less, they all, of course, copy pasting, but that's not the point. So you have this a lot of, so they like the Ethereum taught us that you can write applications on the blockchain, but the network itself is just not scalable at all. So when we thought about that framework, we thought that this is the design goals that we have, right? So, and of course, I'm not going to talk now about how we tackle that, and that's not the point. I mean, you can check it on freeton.org and some technical papers, but there are, of course, basically many blockchains trying to solve that problem but again, you need to talk about this whole complex of these problems, because if you just solve one, you will not build decentralized internet. You may build decentralized finance, yes, but you won't build decentralized internet or a backbone for decentralized internet. So for example, you can have a very fast blockchain, fast meaning like low latency, high throughput, but if you don't have governance, which is decentralized, and you don't have it's a sustainable economy, then just won't work. Now, when we talk about our design, of course, with these goals, it changes a lot the perspective of what you're trying to do. For example, like if you take one chain solution and you just build very fast chain, but you will still have scalability issues because it's not infinite, then you quickly realize, okay, you can build a very fast order book decentralized exchange, but that's about it. And because you will hit the upper limit of your scalability, which will be, I don't know, even a few 100,000 TPS, but then it stops. So how would you do the next one? If a developer comes to you and say, okay, I have another application and I need another 1 million transactions per second, more or less, what you're going to do? So we need this infinite scalability, and the infinite scalability you can only build with, you can't even build it with sharding, because you will build just scalability, but you won't do that fast. And because if you just shard all the time, it won't be low latency, for example. So there are compromises in each step. And if you think about security, for example, if you shard a lot and you don't have a consensus which provides security guarantees which are built for sharding, if you don't solve that, the sharding, the security guarantees for sharding, which is really hard, then you cannot have sharding because you won't have security, right? Or you simply jeopardize the user security if you have sharding. And I'm talking about layer 2 solutions, for example, and all that. And you can build layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, what you have today, more or less, kind of a solution. But the problem is that if you go for all these layers for the user, and I'm talking Web3, which, okay, so let's say layer 1 network, which provides security guarantees, layer 2 network, which provides the scalability, layer 3 net, which provides like a user interface for going through this whole Web3 stack. If you just connect all these pieces together, if you hit a button, it will take you like, I don't know how much time. Like it's not, you simply cannot, you need to think of a system that would have all these components tied together in one kind of network, layer 1. And because without that, you simply cannot hit all these design goals. Just very, very simple kind of stuff, right? Then you have all this decentralized governance and economy, in which I don't even want to start to talk about now because we don't have time for that. So anyway, just for a conclusion, this is the framework I am thinking about when I'm thinking about the next generation blockchains. This was our design goals when we created ours. And I think that you need to check I check every blockchain or every kind of infrastructure solution in the blockchain space today against these principles. And if it doesn't fit, then I say, okay, fine. It has a limited scope of that or that, which is fine, I guess. But well, our goal was to build a decentralized internet because we think that there is a problem with the current one. Thank you very much, and see you again.